Hi everybody and welcome to Find Your Own Everest at the Startup Scaleup Summit in London in 2020. It's an absolute honour and a delight to be here, and I just want to send a huge shout out to Keaton and also the team for all of the work that they have done on this summit. So awesome job. Awesome job. So first of all, you've made it. You've absolutely made it. And take a breath, take a huge deep breath, grab yourself maybe a water, a wine, a coffee, and come in, relax. We've got 30 minutes together, and I'm super excited to be one of your presenters today. So what are we going to be talking about today? So we are going to look at what creates a thriving, peak performing mindset. So, we've been through a lot in 2020, and I think now what we're going to start to do is we're going to start to delve deep into that peak performance mindset. We're going to talk about 7 pillars that can support you in achieving huge success in all that you're doing, both professionally and personally as well. So you're most probably thinking, why Everest? So the reason I selected Everest is, as a mountaineer, one of my summits of the 7 summits is Everest. So I'm actually climbing the 7 summits. So I've chosen this both as a researcher and also as as a mountaineer, as an adventurer, because I want to share with you almost 20 years or 2 decades worth of research that we've been doing both professionally at Clarity Group and also through Quantum Leaps, which is another organization that I'm very proud to be the director of. So we basically distilled several decades research and learning from some of the best minds in the world, and that we've had the honor of working alongside, advising, coaching, and even training and competing with as well. We've also taken some of my PhD research, which is also distilled into here as well, because I'm examining human performance as it relates to creating peak performing organizations. And what we've done is, having lived and breathed this for so long, we realize that on our journey that we found a lot of people that truly would love to know more, but don't necessarily want to study it. So what we've done is we've grouped all that together to bring you a fantastic opportunity to learn a little bit more about it. So 2020 has taught us so much. It's taught us about collaboration. It's taught us about learning. It's taught us about opportunities. But now what we're trying to do is look at, how do we create a peak performing mindset amidst all of this? Because what we know is that success leaves clues. And that's something that we've learned over the time, that it does create a huge amount of success. So how do we actually do that? So one of the things that we're going to do here at your workshop is we're going to be talking about how to do that. We're going to be talking about 7 pillars. So what's in this for you? Well, I'm sorry about the slight interruption there. So we had a little bit of a tech challenge and we're back live as well. So thank you for bearing with me. So what's in this masterclass for you? We're going to talk about the 7 pillars to peak performance, both professionally and personally. We're also going to give you some takeaway and action plans also as well for mastering your own performance. But starting today, there is nothing worse than coming onto these Zooms and conferences and events. And it's something that you can think about in the future. But what we're going to do is actually start today. So we're going to learn about what other successful people, leaders, companies, and athletes are also doing as well. So rather than just do the talking, we're actually going to be doing the actioning as well. So if you have a pen and a piece of paper, then please, by all means, grab those because you will be needing them. So what we're going to talk about is, first of all, we're actually going to be talking about your purpose. Now, what you'll find with your purpose is, being crystal clear on your purpose and aligned with your values. You hear a lot of this thrown around. But what you bring to the world is incredibly important from a peak performance mindset. One thing that's astounded me and a lot of the work that we've done and a lot of the research is some of the greatest minds of the world is the untapped potential. So every single human being on this planet has greatness within, and some never discover that. Some use it for the good and some use it for the not so good. So when I say to people, you have greatness within, this is often a point where people truly don't realize the value that they bring. Your value doesn't have to be climbing Mount Everest. Your value doesn't have to be $1 billion company. But if you're at startup and scale up phase now, one thing you have to know is your purpose and your value, because that's what's going to make the difference. There's a saying that the graveyard is full. It's full of the richest place. It's one of the richest places in the world now and on this planet. And why would you say that? Because really here it's where all the hopes and dreams go. It's the books that were never read. It's the songs that were never sung. It was the words that were never spoken. And the inventions that were never shared. How many of us have got so many things in our mind, but we often don't express them and actually act upon them. So one of the things that I've learned over the years is finding that purpose is what the first step is, what we to becoming that peak performer. Because a lot of people are too afraid to take the first step. They keep the problem, they keep the challenge inside, and often those dreams, those goals, those purposes never get expressed. So what I want you to do is take your pen. Feel free to press pause if you're watching the replay on this as well. Take your pen, and what I would like you to do is write down why you do what you do. So just take a second, write down why you do what you do. I'm going to move through this quite quickly because we have only got 30 minutes together, but you will also get a copy of these slides as well. So if your why and why you do what you do is to give back, to inspire the world, it's for your family, it's for the money, it's for recognition, it doesn't actually matter what that is, but it's important to know what your purpose is. So over the decades, what separates winners from those that are less than winners, those that haven't achieved their goals yet, is action. The peak performers that we've worked with take action. So they're not afraid to take action. They have fears, of course, but they're action takers. They take the steps that they need. Jonathan Winters wrote, if your ship doesn't come into you, then it's for you to swim out to the ship. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. That's what we're going to be sharing. So the third point on these slides that you see is getting out of your comfort zone and stepping into your genius zone. So you're most probably going to be wondering, well, what does that actually mean? So one of the things that we know about our comfort zones is it's where it's safe. It's where it's comfortable. And what we're going to be doing is challenging that by suggesting that the greatest things that are going to happen are outside of your comfort zone and into your zone of genius. So anybody know what the zone of genius is? Maybe a few of you are nodding your head and suggesting that you may know, and some of you may not. So your zone of genius is where you operate, where you have the greatest amount of knowledge or insight, where you have the greatest passion and enjoyment in your subject. And that's where peak performers operate. It's like the saying, stay in your lane. It's finding what your lane is and staying in it. So a simple exercise for you. On your piece of paper, I want you to draw down a line down the center and a line across the bottom for me. So one down the center and one across the bottom. On the left-hand side, I want you to write the words, what you love, what you are good at. And on the right-hand side, what you don't love so much about what you do, what you don't particularly like. Now that's going to be something that you'll do a little bit later. We've only got 30 minutes today, but I'd like you, when you finish today, or at least within the next 24 hours, where that line is, you put a line across the bottom and a line down the middle. I want you to write what you love, what you're passionate about, what you enjoy, and on the other side, what you don't enjoy so much. So the reason why we do that is we're trying to find what your purpose is. What do you enjoy and what do you enjoy less? And the reason why we do that is because it's about operating where you have the most amount of knowledge, where you can best give back to people. And really, if you're going to determine your why as being your guidance, then why not do something that is aligned with that why too? So the next point is study what other successful people are doing. Have a look at the leaders you know, companies and athletes from anywhere in the world, and don't limit it to your field. Don't limit it to that narrow field that perhaps you're in. Look more broadly. Success leaves clues. We have the ability to go online now and learn a huge amount. There's mentors, there's coaches that we can learn from. So by studying what others are doing, it shows us what we can do really well. And also if those people are not doing things that are so good, then we can often then learn from that. So we're so unique as individuals and we've got particular gifts, and that our purpose is to find out how we can best share these gifts to the world, because we only get one life depending upon your beliefs. So why not live that best life? You know, why not find that Everest and then go and climb it? So what I'd like you to do, pen again, I know 3 activities. I want you to get the best value from this masterclass as well. So what I'd like you to do is get your pen again and just put qualities, best qualities. And you can come back to that a little bit later as well. So all you're going to do with this one is write out what your best qualities are. Are you a vibrant, happy, motivating person? Are you someone that copes well under pressure? And it doesn't matter what that is. Can you find the good in everything? Or are you good at looking for risk? And no matter what you are, just write them. No matter what those are, write them down. So if you're looking for a good book that delves into this a little bit more as well, have a look for Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, one of the Stoics, and you'll hear me talk a little bit about the Stoics in the work that we do. You know, you only have to look at the work of Seneca and Zeno and Cato, and I think, you know, the work that they continue to look at is, you know, why are we here? Why are we alive? What's our purpose? So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to leave that one with you, but let's look at the why behind what you do. Let's look at the study of others and also what is your purpose in life. So next one we're going to move on to is we're going to talk about an optimal mindset. Now this is an important one, and the reason why it's an important one is our minds and brains are one of the most fascinating topics and also our greatest asset. They're overflowing with creativity and ingenuity. And for a little item that weighs about 3 pounds, it's about 2% of your body weight, depending upon, depending upon individuals. There's a small differentiation. and it consumes 25% of the oxygen in our bodies, which is an important factor when you're heading up to altitude, for those of you that are climbers who are listening as well. So it burns 20% of our total calories and runs on 12 watts of power, which I believe is, I think it's about a fifth of the standard light globe as well. So interesting, 86 billion microscopic neurons, constantly firing, 10 quadrillion calculations happening. So whilst our brains are our greatest asset, they're also the battlefield where some of our fiercest wars are fought as well. They're often what pulls us back. They often prevent us from being that peak performer. So when interviewing peak performers, when working with them, some commonalities that I want to share with you as well in how we get non-peak performers to peak performance stages, how you can turn your mindset from where it is right now to where you want it to be. So some of the key factors here are not blaming. So not looking at external factors. So Jack Canfield writes in his fantastic book, The Success Principles, he talks about the event plus the response equals the outcome. So regardless of what event is going on, it's how we respond that creates the outcome for us. So peak performance won't allow other negativity to affect them. They take control of how they perceive situations as well. They accept instead of resisting. So a common saying is, if it's imposed by nature, accept it, because the reality is we can't continue if we don't accept. So another useful tip also as well is redirecting your mind. So quick pause there as well is, how many people are, often stuck in what they perceive in their mind also as well. So it's that matter of, well, the reality is, is this actually happening, or is it something that we perceive is happening? So, a technique that ultra athletes, endurance athletes, and, high performing people do is they use a technique called chunking or chunking down. So you take the greater challenge, you take the greater thing that's happening, and then you bring it down. So when I'm running 100 kilometers, I don't think about running 100 kilometers. Trust me, my mind wouldn't even comprehend that. I have to think about running 10 by 10. When you're thinking about running a multi-million-dollar company, you don't start off by thinking it's going to be 10 million by next Tuesday. What we do is we chunk that down into yearly, into monthly, into weekly, into daily goals. So in our research of over 4,500 people and teams across the world, we've identified that one of the biggest points around mindset is having a growth mindset. So if you're listening, how are you feeling about growth mindset? Do you know anything about it? So a growth mindset is allowing the mind to see much greater, and instead of closing it down, and it's not necessarily negativity, but instead of closing our minds down, we're looking at how we can actually look for the alternatives. So how can we look for alternative solutions? So if you're looking for a great book also as well on mindset, check out Dr. Carol Dweck from Stanford University. Her book is absolutely phenomenal. So, the stories we tell ourselves, and you'll read this through her book as well, the stories we tell ourselves and the things we believe can often prevent that change from happening. And, one of the things that we talked about from the beginning is how our minds can be our greatest asset, but how they can also hinder us too. So when we're talking about optimal mindset, we're looking at what can we do as entrepreneurs to create a flourishing environment. So I think about it this way. If you spoke to your family member, friend, husband, wife, colleague, the way you speak to yourself every day when you criticize, I messed up that particular challenge, or I didn't finish this task, or sometimes the terrible things we tell ourselves about our abilities. Imagine if you spoke to your partner, friends, clients even like that. It wouldn't be acceptable. So one of the things that we talk about with optimal mindset is speaking to yourself as you would speak to others. And that's a huge factor in providing that optimal peak mindset. So the last point on here, the last 2 points on here are about goal setting. Now, I don't want to go into goal setting because it's pretty much been done to death, but I think it's an important point to raise that there's a huge body of literature around this. And, whether you decide to publicize your goals or not, whether you publicly talk about them or not, then that's your decision. And I think it's an important one to consider. Each one of the companies and individuals that we work with have tackled their challenges and tackled their growth in very different ways. Some have publicly shared them and some haven't. So what matters most in all of this with peak performance mindset is actually documenting those goals, however you want, whether you put them online, whether you put them in an app, whether you write them. The most important thing is writing them down and reviewing them regularly. Some of our clients will regularly review them twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. Some it'll be once a day or once a week. Whatever you find is the best option for you, the only piece of advice around the goal setting is make sure that you review them regularly, because that's where the significant change happens. That's where the rewiring of our brain happens. If we visualize those goals, if we act as though they've already happened. So if you're looking for another great book on this as well, Viktor Frankl's book in Man's Search for Meaning, wrote about that stimulus response. So, there's a space in our minds where we get to choose our response. And one of the things with goal setting is we're choosing to set those goals. We're choosing to review them and we're choosing to action them, and putting focused action and attention and deliberate practice around those every day. So an action item for you is related to the last dot point on your presentation here, is coping strategies. Now, this is a huge topic in itself, but I'm just going to very quickly touch on this one. So, we've talked about coping strategies and often how the coping strategies that we use can make a significant difference to our mindset. So what I'd suggest with this action here is write down, how do you cope when something doesn't go quite so well? When you've written down a goal and it doesn't work, when you perhaps don't achieve the goal. And also as well, what do you do? So write down for me, an action item is, what coping strategy are you using? Are you going for a run? Are you eating not so great food? What exactly are you doing as your coping strategies? And then the next point in that, and this is where you can hit pause on the recording as well, is what you're doing today setting you on a pathway towards your goals? So, quick couple to finish with. So there's a couple of things that I just want to share with you around the last couple of stages, and we are going to just run through these very quickly because of in terms of timings. So the next one I want to go to is moving. So often with our peak performing clients and athletes and companies that they work with, there isn't a really important understanding around a healthy body and a healthy mind. And the two are inextricably linked. And this is an important one. So if you have your pen and paper down, pad and paper ready, what I'd like you to do is, do you have time in any given day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to put a little bit of more movement into your day? And I'll explain a little bit more about movement. So just write yes or no, whether you can or not. So as we know, when we move, we load our connective tissue and bones, we increase our respiratory response and circulation. So research has shown that's what's called embodied cognition. So in other words, our actual body movements that we take in any given day, whether we're static, sat down all day, whether we're moving and active, actually have a significant impact upon our brain function and our processing skills and our information and processing, like decision making and vice versa. So I think, the process of neurogenesis, for example, which identifies that brain health and functions are incredibly important. It's a constantly renewing process that we go through. It takes movement. We can't be sedentary. So, is there a way that, in order to avoid this cognitive or mental decline that can occur with age to a lesser or greater extent? Things like lowering oxidative stress. That's what movement provides for us. It's an incredibly powerful tool. So every hour on the hour, another challenge for you. Could you put a diary and reminder on your phone or on your laptop, and every hour you pause and stop for 5 minutes and take some time to move? If you're scaling up your business, if you're growing your business, you'll need all the support and help you can get from external, but also from an internal process as well. So a quick couple of points on nutrition. Now, I've got to be very, very clear on the nutrition part. I'm not a nutritionist. So we have nutritional experts that we go to with SJ Nutrition, and also MK, who's one of our team members that works alongside us at Clarity. So I want to be very, very clear that this is not nutritional advice. This is really focusing on you are truly what you eat. So the impact of food upon our brain and our performance is incredibly important. So it's often an overlooked pillar to performance as well. So for those that are initially setting up or scaling your business, truly what you put into your body is going to be vital. So from our own research, we know that's something, and we heavily promote, is that the impact upon food and our brain. So one of the most important elements in the human body is our brain. It regulates a huge amount of information. And because our brain is the foundation of supporting everything that we do physiologically also as well, it's important to understand that what we eat and what we consume influences our brain. Things like brain fog. Anybody got brain fog before? Or lethargy, tiredness, inflammation in the body and pain in the joints. These are often, not always, but linked to what we're consuming. So as peak performers, as entrepreneurs, we need to be on the top of our game. So what we eat is truly what we're putting into our body is what we're getting out. So we're going to very, very quickly skim through that one, but an action item for you on this particular slide here is take your pen. And also what I'd like you to do is identify, just put yes or no, could you make any changes to what you're currently eating and drinking? It's just a simple yes or no. Do you believe that what you're consuming you could actually improve upon? So the key to peak performance is identifying an area where you actually can improve and then making a change. So a couple of points, I'm just going to very, very quickly run through these because we are running very, very short of time. So what are the tools to aid recovery used by peak performers? So I think this is another one. The rest and recovery is not just for athletes. The aim of recovery is in accelerating the return of the body to our pre-exercise or pre-event or pre-stress environment. So for those of you that are in a demanding role, it's like running a marathon. It's like climbing a mountain, or it's like performing a soccer game or an AFL or whatever your sport is. So this is why, for the purposes that we're talking about here as peak performers, the body must be recovered physiologically and psychologically if we want to achieve peak performance. So training, competition, demanding jobs, demanding lifestyle, children, family, all of those things do take a toll on the body, and they can cause fatigue in different aspects of our neural, psychological, and environmental aspects. So what we want to talk about here is speeding up that recovery process. So a lot of the techniques used by athletes can also be used by us as entrepreneurs as well, but they're often overlooked. Things like massage, flotation, cold therapies, hyperbaric therapies, acupuncture. Now, there's conjecture around the validity of how these can work, for some people, and how they can work better for others. So just bear that in mind as well, in terms of everybody responds differently to these. But the question is, which type of recovery technique would work for you? So for many, it's a question of investing time and money and experimenting, and many, many years of experimenting. What works for you and what doesn't? And I think, we're here to suggest a quick couple of them, but this is a huge topic in itself. So one of the things I think is the quickest and easiest win in all of this is sleep. Quick show of hands. Who gets 8 hours of sleep? You'll notice that I put my hand down because I don't always get 8 hours of sleep. But as an entrepreneur, I also know that sleep is vital, and it's one of the least complex and one of the easiest things that we can do. So an action item for you is, do you have 30 minutes a day to add in some additional sleep, some additional rest, or some of those additional tools? And remember, I'm going to provide the slides so you'll get all of this content as well. So do you have 30 minutes a day to rest and recover? So the final couple, as we're very, very quickly running out of time, is number 6. So looking at, we've looked at that element of rest and recovery, but something that we peak performers do, and they do incredibly well, is celebration. So when they reach their goal, there's a celebration, and it's incredibly important to look at that celebration also as well as an important aspect of your journey. And the reason why I say that is because often we move on to the next task and we don't reward ourselves. Our brain needs rewards to continue. It needs it when we're at our most challenging. So if you haven't given yourself, not necessarily a pat on the back, but an actual true celebration when you achieve a goal, then I would suggest planning that into what you're doing for you or for your team. There's a whole other lot of information around this element, and I'd love to discuss more, but I just want to leave you with that key point around element number 6 is, when you've summited, when you've finished your goal, is making sure that you do celebrate. So a great book, if you're looking for something around peak performance also is The Science of Expertise. Anders Ericsson is a huge, he's a Swedish psychologist, and he has a huge amount of research in this field. And he's also he has been a fantastic researcher over the years. So, feel free to have a look at Anders Ericsson's work as well. So taking time out of the day to celebrate the successes. Small wins affect our brain, and using rewards to fuel the fire from within. And never ever underestimate the power of doing so. So we've covered the 7 pillars to peak performance, and they're for you to take away and review and put an action plan into place for mastering your own performance. But starting today, you've got some key questions there as well. One of the things that I think is a really important one as well in terms of learning is, from today, learn what other successful people are doing. Take what you've learned here at this fantastic Startup Scale-Up Summit. Take those learnings from other successful people, leaders, companies, and athletes, and try to duplicate that, but in your own unique way. Some of the greatest lessons are not from others, they're also from within. And a huge factor of peak performing individuals is that they truly believe that in order to reach the next level of performance, they have to believe in themselves. They have to truly see the greatness from within. They have to visualize it each and every day. Every day I visualize standing on the summit of Everest. Every single day. I may or may not get there, but I still have the power to visualize, and that's what it takes. Every single day to visualize what your goal is, what your Everest is. So whatever your Everest is, firstly, it's time to find your Everest, and then it's time to start climbing it. from myself, Belinda at Clarity, I just want to say, dream big, aim high, never ever give up, because your Everest awaits. A huge thank you for joining me today.